Okay, good evening, everybody. It's August 4th, 2025. It's at Dine at Khilah Marine Park. Tonight's Dine is sponsored by the Shu'ali family, Le'ilui Nishmas Harry's father, Mordechai Rabbi Yitzchak, and the Neshama should have an aliyah. So for the next few weeks, I thought we'd talk a little bit about AI and Halachah. We spoke about it at Shavuos night. And I thinking about should I repeat some of what I said Shavuos night or not. But for one thing, not everybody here was there Shavuos night. And not everyone who was there with Shavuos night was completely awake. And not everyone who was there Shavuos night completely awake remembers everything. So we'll do a little chazara. And then I think we'll do a little more something in Yana Diyoma. It is now, the night after, the day after Tisha B'Av, 24 hours ago, we were still fasting. So I thought we'd talk a little bit about the Beis HaMikdash and AI. Bear with me. So as you all know, there's a major technological revolution going on right now. We don't quite know what it will entail, where it will end, but we know big things are happening on the level of the printing press. I remember when I started working as an actuary in 1995. And where the PCs were starting to come out. And we're worried, the PCs put us out of a job. So the older actuaries said, we remember when the calculator came out, they used to sit there with slide rules doing math, and they said, the calculator put us out of jobs. As it was, it didn't. PCs didn't put us out of jobs. What will happen with AI? I don't know. Maybe it will put us out of jobs, maybe it won't. I'm not so pessimistic. Either Rabbi, I think it'll be a great tool for us. It'll be a great tool to be used Lakad Shem Shemaim and for Talmud Torah. They're already, Esha Torah just released, I think, last week in AI. There are other AIs going out. Silber Me'Rabbanan by the World Mizrahi just released an AI a few days ago. I'm working at the OU on an AI app that's completely different from all the rest. That should be out Hashem on September. I don't want to make any promises of the exact date, but around then, there's a lot for Talmud Torah that can be done with that. But let's take a step back. When people talk about AI, when they write articles, I'm always frustrated because the first thing anybody goes to is the golem. The Chacham Tzvi lived in 17th century. He was a rabbi in Amsterdam until he wasn't anymore. But he was a rabbi in Amsterdam, the Ashkenazic rabbi to a Sephardic community in Amsterdam. He has a tshuva about can you count a golem for a minyan. It's Shut Chacham Tzvi Siman Sadi Gimel. And it's a very frustrating sugya in general. What's a golem? So what's a golem? A golem is a creature created through Kabbalah. Through Sefer Yetzirah, Shem Hashem. Somehow you use Kabbalah to create a being, give it life so it can walk around and do what you tell it to do. Most famous golem was a Maharal's golem. Most of the stories that we know about the Maharal's golem are complete fiction. Made up. We even know who made them up. Rabbi Yudel Rosenberg in the early 1900s. He intended it as a work of fiction, but people took it literally. That doesn't mean the Maharal didn't create a golem. That's not what it doesn't mean that. It means he had heard the Maharal created a golem. Let me write some stories to entertain people. And some of the stories actually are the exact same plot as some Sir Arthur Conan Doyle stories that had been recently translated to Yiddish, not long before this book supposedly by the Maharal about the golem was published. Be that as it may, we know in history there are stories of certain golems. The Chacham Tzvi himself says his grandfather created a golem. The Gemara in Sanhedrin says Rava created a golem. The question is, can you count it for a minyan? And to me, I don't even say the Shiloh. It's not Jewish. It's not a person. So where does the Shiloh even come in? But wait till you hear the Chacham Tzvi's arguments. So the Gemara in Sanhedrin Yitzes Amud Beis that Kol Megadol Yasam Ki'ila Yelado. Whoever raises an orphan, it's as if you gave birth to that orphan. It's beautiful. Raising an orphan is very hard. It's just continuous giving. It's a beautiful thing, and it becomes that you develop that relationship. It is as if you gave birth to that child, but not literally. There's a Gemara there's a Rashi in Parshas Beis who says the ma'asim of tzaddikim are like their children, right? Like their children. But says the Chacham Tzvi, so you see, who made this golem? It's a Maisa from a tzaddik. It was the act of a tzaddik. A tzaddik created through his actions, and therefore it's his child. Therefore, maybe the golem can't count for a minion. But he says no, because the Gemara, which talks about Rava's golem, the Gemara in Sanhedrin, Samachim and Beis, Rava created a golem, but then Rabbi Zera killed it. He destroyed it. He told it. He somehow undid the Kabbalah, or through Kabbalah, he destroyed this golem. So says the Chacham Tzvi, if you can count him for a minion, so how could Rab Zera kill this golem? That's what is Bal Tashris. We need a minion. Sometimes, there's in the shul, sometimes you need a minion at the 620 Shachris. The golem could have been, if we had a golem, it would be really handy. How could Rab Zera destroy it? Must be he doesn't count for a minion, and therefore there's no Bal Tashris. The whole argument, both and on both directions, just seems very forced. Not as rigorous as most tshuvas you'd expect to be. So what's going on? So I believe the answer is something much, much bigger than a golem or an AI. It's how do you live in a society with certain creatures that don't fall into any halachic category? There's a category of a Jew, there's a category of a non-Jew, there's a category of an Oved Avodah Zarah, there's a category of a Jew who leaves the derech, who does Avodah Zarah. There are all sorts of categories. A golem, how can it be that he has no category? What are you allowed to steal from him? Are you allowed to just go up in the street and smack him? Are you allowed to beat him to a pulp? Are you allowed to a golem woman? Are you allowed to rape her? Are you allowed to do whatever you want to any of these people? Are you allowed to take their money and just take their wallet and walk away from it? Did you do nothing wrong? Did you do something wrong? Do they have any rights? Do they have any obligations? What do we do in a society if there really was a case? Now, I've never seen a golem. I think in our lifetime there probably hasn't been a golem. I mean, some of the people you meet in the shtibel you might think, but they're not really. But AI is something that will be. There will be a time, possibly in our lifetime, when there are robots walking around who are artificially intelligent. They're part of our society. The guy in the cubicle next to you might be a robot powered by AI. So what do? Are you allowed to just go over them and go? Are you allowed to plagiarize all his work? Are you allowed to steal from him? What's the halachas about these people? They can't have no halachas. So that's why the Chacham Tzvi struggle to understand this golem living in our community, going around helping out Jews, doing chesed, doing whatever the rabbi told him to do. What is he? He must have some sort of a halacha, some sort of a din. So what is it? So if you're not convinced by the Chacham Tzvi's rayas, so there are other rayas, there are other arguments, there are other shittas. So there are people who are disabled, who they can't speak.
Or a mute.
Right, a mute, can't speak, or someone who's deaf. So there are halachas about them. So maybe a golem, you're saying, maybe fits into a shota. Maybe he's a shota. Maybe he is a cherish. I don't know. So I would say when it comes to AI, to compare an AI to a golem is a bit of a stretch, because they're pretty much the exact opposite. A golem has no intelligence but has a physical body and a physical life force. AI, at least right now, has no body, but it could very well have intelligence. I mean, you see some of the answers coming out of ChatGPT. You think maybe it isn't so, it's artificial, maybe it's not so intelligent.
Like a Frankenstein monster.
A golem is like a Frankenstein monster, correct. So there's an argument that can be made that there may be 4 or 5 plots in fiction. That fiction only has 4 or 5 plots if you generalize them a lot. Frankenstein's monster is one of those plots. It's basically the only plot in science fiction, almost. Is we create something and then it turns on us. And if you look through science fiction, it's almost every science fiction story, or it's either that or it's a romance. Or maybe there's one or 2 others. There's a Harry Potter or the Jedi who, someone with nobody who grows up to be somebody. So there are a few plots. Frankenstein's monster is one of them. I don't even know why I went on that tangent, but it doesn't matter.
But I'm just using a soulless being. It's an intelligent, it's some degree of intelligence, but it doesn't have the soul. It doesn't have the neshama, as it were. Could you use that? I'm just using an analogy. That's all.
So the Maharsha, he says, from the fact that a golem can't speak, we see that it doesn't have a neshama. And if it doesn't have a neshama, it can't count for a minyan. So even if you want to say speech and the neshama are not intertwined, that's maybe that's an onkelos. You don't have to hold by that onkelos. But even if you want to say they're not intertwined, I think it's pretty safe to say that a golem doesn't have a neshama, and an AI doesn't have a neshama. So of course they don't count for a minyan. Okay, fine.
Would you compare a golem to an animal?
So there is a shita. So there are 4 shitas. I don't want to really go into all the 4. One shita is the golem is Reb Tzadok HaKohen of Mibul Blin, one of the big Hasidic masters of the early late 19th century and early 20th century. He holds a golem has a din of a Jew. So there is a Jew. Then there's a shita that seems like the Chacham Tzvi holds he's not a Jew, but he's a person. There are others who hold that, if not the Chacham Tzvi. There's a shita, the Chacham Tzvi's son, the Rabbi Yaakov Emden holds he's an animal. A golem is an animal. And then there's a 4th shita, which makes most sense to me. It says it's an inanimate object that happens to move around. It's a rock and a stone. And you have to treat a rock and a stone with a certain amount of respect. There's an Isser Bal Tashchis, but it's not it's even less than an animal.
AI would be less than a golem because AI only has the power that you give it.
So AI is less than an animal in one sense, but in another sense, it has more than an animal because it actually can make rational thought. And maybe
AI is created by a human.
so were you. You were also created by human.
What about Beis from an AI bot?
Aegis, testimony, a lot of questions, a lot of shilos. Come back for the rest of the summer, and Mr. Hashem will talk through a lot of shilos.
Can AI lie?
Can an AI lie?
Uh-huh.
Absolutely.
Said it can't be named.
A human can lie also.
Right, but there are ways to question it. You can't question AI to figure out if it's lying. or
You
not.
can. You can ask him, are you lying to me?
And it will tell you.
Yes,
It happens to me very often. It hallucinates, and you ask, is it real? And it'll say, oh, actually, no, sorry, it's not real. Here's something else, which is also a hallucination.
You see the paradox in that response.
In Achinami, life is full of paradoxes. So I don't have an answer. I would say,
What about
an
an alien?
alien?
Alien.
So there's one article I've seen about aliens in Halachah that's by Rabbi Norman Lamb. He wrote an article about aliens in Halachah. So I would suggest, what I'm about to say now about AI probably also applies to aliens. There's a shita in the Rishonim of Rav Nissim Gaon and many after him that the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, right, the laws for the descendants of Noach, for the non-Jews, are really just rational laws that are required to have a society. No theft, no murder, things like that. It's just the rational laws. And then they go a step further. Anything that is rationally compelling, that we need it for society, you are obligated to follow that. That it becomes a divine commandment. If you deduce rationally that this must be, humans must do this in order to survive, then you're obligated to do it. So I would argue that an alien is chayiv on the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach and any other rational command, because you can't have a society without them. And I believe also AI, you could say the same. They're intelligent, and AI could recognize the Ribono Shel Olam. If the AI goes through all the logic and finds it compelling and says, oh, you know what, the proofs for God I find them convincing, I believe there's a God. And not only that, I believe murder is bad for society. You can't have a society with murder, so the AI would be forbidden, pi halacha, to murder. And also to us, I think it's rationally compelling. We cannot have a society in which we're allowed to steal from robots, the guy in the cubicle next to us, or in any other way damage or harm or attack a non-human being who lives in our society. I would argue you can't kill them.
I've killed a robot before.
Not an intelligent robot, because there aren't intelligent robots yet.
Even if it's life-threatening.
Well, you're allowed to kill a human being if it's life-threatening, so you're allowed to kill a robot also if it's
Robot has no
life-threatening.
feelings.
It's not about feelings. It's not about feelings.
Yeah.
It's about society. That we
So
can't.
would it be okay in society if people killed their own robot?
Their own robots. What about someone else's robot?
That's just like damaging somebody else's object. AI should have the same as...
So I like where you're going, and we did discuss that on Shavuos, and that's sort of the direction that I went. That is damaging. As I mentioned before, there are 4 shitas. One shita is that an AI or a golem is like a rock or a stone. and you're not allowed to destroy someone else's rock or stone because that is damage. It belongs to someone else's property. So you can't damage someone else's property. That's a separate argument. A
So
separate
it's
argument.
nothing to do with killing. It's not the problem with killing.
It's definitely not ritzicha, but it might not be allowed because we can't have a society in which you can just, on your own, let's say there is no owner. Let's say he's ownerless, he owns himself.
Ownerless robot.
Why not? You need to read some more Isaac Asimov and then you'd understand what I'm saying.
Okay, so that's
Science fiction.
So it's Hefker.
Is it Hefker or does he own himself?
A robot. It doesn't have.
So you're saying a robot, an AI, cannot own property? I'm not so sure that's true. I'm not so sure.
if let's just say, if Chas v'shalom, a AI Waymo car crashes and causes death or even Zekin, who's chayiv to pay?
Oh, so if an AI damages something else, who's chayiv to pay? There are two questions. There are two
malfunction as a result of the car crash.
There are two levels of that. Who's guilty of doing it? Is it the guy who programmed the algorithm? Is it the owner who actually physically owns that AI? Is it, let's say, Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI? Now, the second question is, it's all grumma. It's all very, very indirect. How can anyone be obligated? If, let's say I am Sam Altman, and I do own OpenAI, and one of my cars did crash and caused tremendous damage. How can I be guilty? That's so indirect to get to me. So there are two shilos there. I don't want to go into that right now. I would argue. Let's put that aside. Let's put that aside for now. I want to talk about it in Yana Dioma. So I published an article last Shabbos. Can AI rebuild the Beis HaMikdash? So here's the question. The Beis HaMikdash has to be in a very specific place. You can't build it anywhere. You have to build it on Har HaBayis, not just on Har HaBayis, in very specific place in Har HaBayis. Let me read to you the Rambam's language in Hilchos Beis HaBechira, Perik Beis, Halacha Aleph. HaMizbeach mekomo mechuvan beyoser. The place of the altar, the Mizbeach, is very specific. Ve'ein mishanin also mimkomo le'olam. You cannot change the place of the Mizbeach ever. For eternity, you can never change it. So where is that place on the Mizbeach? So in 1862, Rabbi Tzvi Hirsch Kahler published a sefer called Drishas Tzion. I'm sorry, Kalisher.
Okay.
Kalisher. Sorry, you're right near me. That's why I took the Kalisher. Rabbi Tzvi Hirsch Kalisher published the sefer Drishas Tzion, which caused tremendous controversy in the rabbinic world. This sefer is the beginning of religious Zionism, and in this sefer he argues, number one, we should all go to Eretz Yisrael even before Mashiach comes. We should build, and number two, we should build the Beis HaMikdash or start bringing karbanos immediately. He wrote to in this edition, the 2002 edition, it even includes his letter that he wrote to Moses Montefiore, asking him to provide money so that they can start bringing karbanos in Yerushalayim. There's no answer. It's like we're writing to a big gvir asking for some crazy idea. But he was a Talmud of Rabbi Akiva Eiger, so he exchanged letters with Rabbi Akiva Eiger on the subject. Rabbi Akiva Eiger, in the process, he got very old and sick and eventually passed away. He asked his son-in-law, the Chasam Sofer, to continue the conversation with Tzvi Hirsch Kalisher. So the question, and there were articles. It shook the rabbinic world. The first tshuva of Binyan Sion by the Aruch LaNer, his first tshuva is a response to Drishas Tzion. Can you bring karbanos today? A lot of questions. Rabbi Akiva Eiger had a lot of questions. One of the questions he asked was, where's the Mizbeach? We don't know. Mekomo mechuvan beyoser. It has to be exactly in the right place. We don't know where it is. How can you bring karbanos? Not only that, in Divrei Hayomim Aleph, Perek Chaf Aleph. Right? We don't really know what's in Divrei Hayomim, but the Gemara quotes it, so that's why we know. Gad Hanavi told David HaMelech exactly where to buy the Goren of Ravna, to buy that, and told him exactly where to put the Mizbeach, and therefore, because it was by a Nevuah, from a Navi, that's why David HaMelech knew where to build it. So says Rabbi Akiva Eiger, where's our Navi?
But we know, of course we know, Maseches Midot.
So Rabbi Tzvi Hirsch Kalisher answered exactly what you just said. He said, yeah, David didn't know because he didn't have the Mishnayos.
Look at Maseches Midot.
We have the Mishnayos.
זה גמרא also, אין מסכת מידות.
We have Maseches Midos. So Maseches Midos has all the measurements of exactly where everything is in the Beis HaMikdash.
A tall kohen has to bring a carbon.
So the questions about kahuna, there are a lot of questions about kahuna. That's also part of it. Right now, let's just talk about the Mizbeach. So Reb Tzvi Hirsch said, you have Maseches Midos that gives the exact measurements. We know where the western wall is. Measure from the western wall, figure out how much an amma is, and you can get it. You can get it. You can figure out exactly where the Mizbeach should be. So that was his answer. Why did David need a Navi? Because he didn't have Maseches Midos. We have Chazal. Chazal tell us how to do it. Okay, so decades later, Rabbi Khilah Michal Tukachinsky, he was the Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshiva Eitz Chaim in Yerushalayim in the 1920s, 1930s. So he wrote a sefer called Ira Kodesh HaMikdash. It has about 5 or 6 volumes. And he disagrees with the Tzvi Hirsch and says a very simple answer. He said, why did David need a Navi to tell him where to build the Mizbeach? Because David didn't know. He didn't know. If we know, so then we don't need a Navi. The Nevuah is only if you don't know. We know, so we can build it. But the reality is, particularly after 1967, what happened in 1967? Of course, we conquered Har HaBeis. Har HaBeis biyadenu, right? So there have been a lot of studies to try to figure out exactly where the Mizbeach is. So if you were to ask me, are you allowed to go up to the Har HaBeis today? I would tell you no for 2 reasons. Number one is, there are many different shitos where the Beis HaMikdash actually stood in Har HaBeis. Har HaBeis is big, and there are actually many different opinions. It's hard to go, well, it's not that hard, but it's very easy to walk in a place that, according to some shita, is a Beis HaMikdash. To go up to Har HaBeis, all you have to do is be tovel, and then you can go up. But to go into the Beis HaMikdash, that's Chiyuv Kares, because we're all Tamei Lameis. So you can't go. There's a very big risk. You might go into a place that, according to some shita, because there are many different shitas, exactly where on the Har HaBeis. Because you say, take Maseches Midos. Not so easy. Not as easy as you might think. There are many different opinions. The Encyclopedia Talmudis, so in their entry, they show many. They actually have a map of many different opinions. But there are what? Sorry.
We don't know how long an Amma is.
Yeah, but so you could be machmir. So it's also very easy, if you know what you're doing, to go on Har HaBeis and step in a place that is definitely not the Beis HaMikdash. Taking into account every shita, there's plenty of room to walk that l'chol hadeis is okay. So I just said you shouldn't go for 2 reasons. One reason is you might walk into the wrong place. The other reason is, just as a matter of public policy, fine, you know where not to go. You'll go in that very circumscribed area that's definitely not the Beis HaMikdash. But what about the other people? People are going to see you going up. They're not going to know the difference. They're not going to be tovel. They're not going to go to the mikvah. And they're going to go up and then walk. They'll wander around. And if you look at the videos, that happens. It happens. The real stark people stay in certain areas, and then the other people just wandering around the Har HaBeis. And plus, for that very reason, the Rav HaRashi, the chief rabbinate, for many, many years, including Rav Adi Yosef, was charif about it, kept saying, don't go up, don't go up. So Rav Hershel Schachter, who holds that it is mutter to go up and stay in certain areas that L'chol hadeis is not the Beis HaMikdash, he also said, follow what the Rav HaRashi says. That's his job. His job is to make policy for the country. So that's his psak. So you follow his psak. But my real point for our purposes is, we don't quite know where the Mizbeach should be. Nobody's quite figured out their different opinions. But let's say we put all the data, all the information into ChatGPT, or Claude, or whatever your preferred AI is, and it goes through all the data, all the archaeological information, all the aerial, photography, satellite imagery, and it comes up and gives the conclusive answer. This is where the Mizbeach should be. This is it. Based on all the evidence, historical evidence, all the Chazal, all the Rishonim, all the Achronim. So based on all that, if it could figure it out, right? We
analyzing the data.
We have people trying to figure it out, and they came up with different opinions. But let's say he's smarter. The AI is smarter, and it'll figure it out. Is that good enough? Is that good enough? Can AI tell us exactly where the Mizbeach should be, and then we can rebuild the Beis HaMikdash?
Your question was to rebuild it with AI? Meaning, Just to use that as the
Right. I mean,
blueprint.
ChatGPT, it's not doing contracting work just yet. Just yet.
Really? How's that any different than using archaeology?
Because they tried that. They tried archaeology. They tried all the science, and there's still different opinions. So maybe if you have someone really, really smart, or smarter than a human, can put it all together and figure it out and be miyashiv all the steers, figure it all out, and come up with a conclusive opinion. Maybe.
Would we listen to a lot of people from an intelligent person who's not a Chacham as opposed to a Chacham?
So would we listen to a psak from an AI if it was a really good one? Not if it's ChatGPT just saying whatever based on whatever was trained, but if it's really well thought out. There's an AI that has been developed in Israel by Professor Moshe Kapel, which is trained on select poskim and select text, and is trained to be accurate and not to. So far, I've tested it out. Actually, before they released it to the public, I was one of the people who beta tested it, and I broke it. And I showed them some stuff that isn't good. And they said, good, okay, thank you very much. That'll help us make it better. Still not great. But let's say in 5 years from now, it really is great. It could write a good tshuva that makes sense. What can you follow it? So, okay, that's a good question. I would say no. But here we're not talking about a psak. Here we're talking about a Messias, figuring it out. So I would compare this to, let's say, Khilah. You see sometimes people wear Khilah nowadays. They think they figured out exactly where Khilah comes from, the Murex trunculus or whatever it's pronounced. Some kind of a snail. They think they figured it out and they can prove it. So Rav Hershel Schachter and Rav Yisrael Belsky both felt very strongly that this is the Techelis, and they both wore it. Rav Schachter wears it, and Lahavdil ben Chaim L'Chaim, Rav Belsky also wore it. So, but Rav Schachter himself, he will tell you that Rav Soloveitchik would never wear it, and would tell people not to wear it. Because he felt, Rav Schachter and Rav Belsky feel, if you can prove something scientifically, you can, that this is something that was used in the Torah, so that is halachically valid. It's not a psak, it's just figuring out what it was. It's a scientific discovery. And Rav Soloveitchik held, you need a Masorah, you need a tradition. You can't just start figuring stuff out on your own. Even if you're exactly right, even if you could go back in a time machine, and it turned out you were right. It proved that we were right. Or when Moshe Rabbeinu comes back in Khilah and says, "You know what? They were right. It was Murex trunculus, and that is a Khilah. Are we wrong for not wearing it?" Rav Soloveitchik said, "No, we're right for not wearing it. We don't have a Masorah on it." So, I think that is similar to the machlokas between Rav Tzvi Hirsch Kalisher and Rabbi Akiva Eger, those two sides. According to Rav Tzvi Hirsch Kalisher, if we could figure it out mathematically, archaeologically, scientifically, where the Mizbeach should be, that's good enough. According to Rabbi Akiva Eger and the others, no, you need a nevuah. You need Hashem. We need a direct line from Hashem in order to do something like that. And Rav Soloveitchik basically says the same thing. You need a Masorah. You need a direct tradition, all the way from Har Sinai, about what is a Tchelis. It's not. There's a limit to what we can reconstruct through science, even if the science is 100% good. So that's what I'm saying. It's a machlokas. Can we use AI to rebuild the Beis HaMikdash? I think that's the machlokas between Rav Tzvi Hirsch Kalisher and Rabbi Akiva Eger, whether you can measure where the Mizbeach should be, or you need an actual nevuah where the Mizbeach should be. So I'm Yis Hashem. Next year, the day of Tisha B'Av, we should all be in Yerushalayim with a nevuah, with an avi, bringing the karbanos, celebrating it as a yontif.
Oh, man.